Okay, so I discovered that there is a 1 hour cap on the videos. So this is the second video for section 2. It won't be as long. We are nearly finished. Okay, so I think I had read up to just here, so I'll start with this. All right. Herbert has it now, she said. I never go there now, she said. Then, just as happens on a terrace in the moonlight, when one person begins to feel ashamed that he is already bored, and yet as the other sits silent, very quiet, sadly looking at the moon, does not like to speak, moves his foot, clears his throat, notices some iron scroll on a table leg, stirs a leaf, but says nothing. So Peter Walsh did now. For why go back like this to the past, he thought. Why make him think of it again? Why make him suffer when she had tortured him so infernally? Why? And so the note here, and just a reminder, this is the nature of time and memory. So I've got, they each relate differently to the past. Clarissa relishes in the past when she was young and life was vital. Peter's memories of the past are painful. He orients himself to the present and the future. And for kind of all this part, the emotive language and rhetorical questions, we've got the power of invoking memories and the past have a significant emotional impact on them both. And then as we read on, the annotation for this bit is that Clarissa sees her life as having passed, no more opportunities. Her rhetorical questions indicate feelings of insignificance and regret. No, Edgar. All right, so now we switch back to Clarissa's point of view. Claire, can you come and get Edgar? Thank you. Okay. Do you remember the lake? She said in an abrupt voice, under the pressure of an emotion which caught her heart, made the muscles of her throat stiff, and contracted her lips in a spasm as she said lake. For she was a child, throwing bread to the ducks between her parents, and at the same time a grown woman coming to her parents who stood by the lake, holding her life in her arms, which, as she neared them, grew larger and larger in her arms, until it became a whole life, a complete life, which she put down by them and said, this is what I have made of it, this. And what had she made of it? What indeed? Sitting there sewing this morning with Peter. So that's that rhetorical questioning there, her sense of insignificance of the life that she's made. And kind of all of this is Clarissa's existential struggle. And we go... Oh, we're still here with Clarissa. She looked at Peter Walsh. Her look, passing through all that time and that emotion, reached him doubtfully, settled on him tearfully, and rose and fluttered away, as a bird touches a branch and rises and flutters away. Quite simply, she wiped her eyes. We switched to Peter. Yes, said Peter. Yes, 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 he said, as if she drew up to the surface something which positively hurt him as it rose. Stop, stop, he wanted to cry, for he was not old. His life was not over, not by any means. He was only just past 50. Shall I tell her, he thought, or not? He would like to make a clean breast of it all. But she is too cold, he thought, sewing with the scissors. Daisy would look ordinary beside Clarissa, and she would think me a failure, which I am in their sense, he thought, in the Dalloway sense. Oh yes, he had no doubt about that. He was a failure. Compared with all this, the inlaid table, the mounted paper knife, the dolphin and the candlesticks, the chair covers and the old valuable English tinted prints, he was a failure. I detest the smugness of the whole affair, he thought. Richard's doing, not Clarissa's, save that she married him. Here Lucy came into the room carrying silver, more silver. But charming, slender, graceful she looked, he thought, as she stooped to put it down. And this has been going on all the time, he thought. Week after week, Clarissa's life. Well, he thought, and at once everything seemed to radiate from him. Journeys, rides, quarrels, adventures, bridge parties, love affairs, work, and he took out his knife quite openly, his old horn-handled knife, which Clarissa could swear he had had these 30 years, and clenched his fist upon it. And so remember the symbolism of the weapons, the knife and the scissors, as being that battle between them, their emotional battle. And so when she says she could swear he had had it these 30 years, she's kind of speaking, perhaps literally, but very much metaphorically there. And interestingly, Clarissa's internal concerns about what's Peter going to think of me? He's going to think I'm old. He's going to see me as worthless. And he has, similar concerns about how Clarissa is going to see him, and he feels like in her eyes he would seem like a failure because he's not got the money and the possessions that Clarissa has amassed because of her marriage to Richard. We can see that he's had, it looks like a very full life. He's had adventures and love affairs and work, and we switch to Clarissa's point of view. And here, for this bit, it's fairy tale imagery, so just have a think about the way this conjures up fairy tales. What an extraordinary habit that was, Clarissa thought, always playing with a knife, always making one feel too frivolous, empty-minded, a mere silly chatterbox as he used. But I too, she thought, and taking up her needle, summoned like a queen whose guards have fallen asleep and left her unprotected. She had been quite taken aback by this visit. It had upset her, so that anyone can stroll in and have a look at her where she lies with the brambles curving over her, summoned to her help the things she did, the things she liked, her husband, Elizabeth, herself, in short, which Peter hardly knew now, all to come about her and beat off the enemy. So she's trying to think about things that make her feel better, and in this moment it's her husband and her daughter and herself. So there's that really up and down notion of self. Sometimes she's got that positive self-view, and at other times it's really despairing. Well, and what's happened to you? She said. So before a battle begins, the horses paw the ground, toss their heads, the light shines on their flanks, their necks curve. So Peter Walsh and Clarissa, sitting side by side on the blue sofa, challenged each other. His powers chafed and tossed in him, and you can see we switch in the middle here to Peter's point of view. He assembled from different quarters all sorts of things: praise, his career at Oxford, his marriage, which she knew nothing whatever about, how he had loved and altogether done his job. Millions of things, he exclaimed, and urged by the assembly of powers which were now charging this way and that, and giving him the feeling at once frightening and extremely exhilarating of being rushed through the air on the shoulders of people he could no longer see. He raised his hands to his forehead. Clarissa sat very upright, drew in her breath. "I am in love," he said. Not to her, however, but to someone raised up in the dark, so that you could not touch her, but must lay your garland down on the grass in the dark. "In love," he repeated, now speaking rather dryly to Clarissa Dalloway. "In love with a girl in India." He had deposited his garland. Clarissa could make what she would of it. I mentioned at the beginning of the first video the monster motif, and that it is used to represent those strong emotions, and so here we have it again when Clarissa thinks about the love that he is talking about, this new love. Just letting that focus. So we switch to Clarissa's point of view here. "In love," she said, "that he at his age should be sucked under in his little bow tie by that monster. And there's no flesh on his neck, his hands are red, and he's 6 months older than I am." Her eye flashed back to her, but in her heart she felt all the same, he is in love. He has that, she felt. He is in love. But the indomitable egotism which forever rides down the hosts opposed to it, the river which says on, even though it admits there may be no goal for us whatever, still on, this indomitable egotism charged her cheeks with colour, made her look very young, very pink, very bright-eyed as she sat with her dress upon her knee and her needle held to the end of green silk, trembling a little. He was in love, not with her, with some younger woman, of course. And so, again, we've got here this gender identity, social attitudes to women. And I'll just give you the annotation before I read the next bit. So here we can see that Clarissa feels the unfairness of time for women, both biologically and due to social structures. A man can continue life with a younger woman, the older woman is replaced. And I guess, she's been talking about her no longer being able to have children, and there's that difference in that men can continue to have children up until their entire lives, whereas for women it's cut off. And and I guess I think she sees the unfairness in that, and that he just gets to start over, and this with some younger woman, of course. And who is she? She asked. Now this statue must be brought from its height and set down between them. Switched to Peter. A married woman, unfortunately, he said, the wife of a major in the Indian Army. And with a curious, ironical sweetness, he smiled as he placed her in this ridiculous way before Clarissa. And then Clarissa, it's just like a little interlude here. All the same, he is in love, thought Clarissa. And we're back to Peter. She has, he continued very reasonably, 2 small children, a boy and a girl, and I have come over to see my lawyers about the divorce. There they are, he thought. Do what you like with them, Clarissa. There they are. And second by second it seemed to him that the wife of the major in the Indian Army, his Daisy, and her 2 small children, became more and more lovely as Clarissa looked at them, as if he had set light to a great pellet on a plate, and there had risen up a lovely tree in the brisk sea-salted air of their intimacy. For in some ways no one understood him, felt with him as Clarissa did, their exquisite intimacy. Back to Clarissa. She flattered him. She fooled him, thought Clarissa, shaping the woman, the wife of the major in the Indian Army, with 3 strokes of a knife. What a waste, what a folly. All his life long Peter has been fooled like that. First getting sent down from Oxford, next marrying the girl on the boat going out to India. Now the wife of a major. Thank heaven she had refused to marry him. Still, he was in love. Her old friend, her dear Peter, he was in love. And so Clarissa here assumes that this woman is flattering and fooling Peter, and that he's been taken into something that he doesn't understand, or maybe the wife is after something, or but I think that, and when she says thank heaven she had refused to marry him, I don't know that I believe her there, or that she believes that. I think she's just trying very hard to be okay in this moment, hearing that he is in love. Even though she's married to Richard, she's been thinking about Peter and what could have been. And she said earlier that early on, after she refused him, she was really upset when she heard that he'd gotten married to someone else. So it's a really problematic relationship that they've got. But what are you going to do? She asked him. Oh, the lawyers and solicitors, Messrs. Hooper and Greatley of Lincoln's Inn, they were going to do it, he said, and he actually pared his nails with his pocket knife. For heaven's sake, leave your knife alone, she cried to herself in irrepressible irritation. It was his silly unconventionality, his weakness, his lack of the ghost of a notion what anyone else was feeling that annoyed her, had always annoyed her, and now at his age, how silly. He switched to Peter's point of view. I know all that, Peter thought. I know what I'm up against, he thought, running his finger along the blade of his knife. Clarissa and Dalloway and all the rest of them. but I'll show Clarissa. And then to his utter surprise, suddenly thrown by those uncontrollable forces, thrown through the air, he burst into tears, wept without the least shame, sitting on the sofa, the tears running down his cheeks. And so here he's like, oh, I know that they're going to be judging me, but I'll show them. And then he just bursts into tears. So that bravado is immediately, it immediately dissolves. And we switch to Clarissa. And Clarissa had leant forward, taken his hand, drawn him to her, kissed him, actually had felt his face on hers before she could down the brandishing of silver flashing plumes like pampas grass in a tropic gale in her breast, which subsiding left her holding his hand, patting his knee, and feeling as she sat back extraordinarily at her ease with him and light-hearted. All in a clap it came over her. If I had married him, this gaiety would have been mine all day. It was all over for her. The sheet was stretched and the bed narrow. She had gone up into the tower alone and left them blackberrying in the sun. Now let's go back here. So this is the metaphor again of the sheet being stretched and the bed narrow. Now before I'd placed that with this idea of like gender and identity, that, you know, she's no longer desirable. Here it's this, I've placed it with the mental health. So this metaphor of the sheet stretched and the bed narrow. And again, this going up into the tower alone, which we heard previously. So the revelation of Peter's love has intensified and solidified her own loneliness and fraught relationship with Richard. So she knows that being in a separate bedroom to Richard and that loneliness is solidified for her. It was all over for her. It's a very high modality statement there. And that she had left any potential for true romance or happiness, I guess, with others, left them blackberrying in the sun. And she goes on to say the door had shut, so metaphor for her loneliness, the end of her purpose, her worth, like the door on her purpose is shut, the door had shut. And there among the dust of fallen plaster and the litter of birds' nests, now how distant the view had looked, and the sounds came thin and chill. Once on Leith Hill, she remembered, and Richard, Richard, she cried as a sleeper in the night starts and stretches a hand in the dark for help. Lunching with Lady Bruton, it came back to her. He has left me. I am alone forever, she thought, folding her hands upon her knee. Peter Walsh had got up and crossed to the window and stood with his back to her, flicking a bandana handkerchief from side to side. Masterly and dry and desolate he looked, his thin shoulder blades lifting his coat slightly, blowing his nose violently. Take me with you, Clarissa thought impulsively, as if he was starting directly upon some great voyage. And then next moment it was as if the 5 acts of a play that had been very exciting and moving were now over, and she had lived a lifetime in them and had run away, had lived with Peter, and it was now over. Now it was time to move, and as a woman gathers her things together, her cloak, her gloves, her opera glasses, and gets up to go out of the theatre and into the street, she rose from the sofa and went to Peter. And we switched to Peter here. And it was awfully strange, he thought, how she still had the power as she came tinkling, rustling, still had the power as she came across the room to make the moon, which he detested, rise at Bourton on the terrace in the summer sky. Now, so, annotation I've made here. So we've got a juxtaposition of Peter's view of Clarissa's power. So he sees Clarissa as beautiful, and that the power of his love for her has remained so strong, and he still wants her. But we've just seen Clarissa saying that her own self-view is that she is nun-like and powerless. Now remember I said that Virginia Woolf wanted this character of Peter to present this different perspective of Clarissa, different to what she has of herself, perhaps a more, I guess it's a little bit more objective. It's still subjective because emotions, but we see that she doesn't, I don't think that Clarissa does see this beautiful worth that Peter sees here. And there's this moment here, where they potentially could almost have grasped something, but it's very fleeting. "Tell me," he said, seizing her by the shoulders. "Are you happy, Clarissa? Does Richard—" The door opened. "Here is my Elizabeth," said Clarissa, emotionally, histrionically perhaps. "How do you do?" said Elizabeth, coming forward. The sound of Big Ben striking the half-hour struck out between them with extraordinary vigour, as if a young man, strong, indifferent, inconsiderate, was swinging dumbbells this way and that. And so the time again, so this time motif, and here it is the relentless passing of time. It is indifferent, inconsiderate of the significance of a moment. So this moment is so significant, and it's interrupted by Clarissa's daughter walking into the room. Now, this is the colour that I've got for the nature of time and memory. So the clock striking so strongly pulls them out of their memories, signifying that their chance at love is in the past. So it's quite sad, really. "Hello, Elizabeth," cried Peter, stuffing his handkerchief into his pocket, going quickly to her, saying "Goodbye, Clarissa," without looking at her, leaving the room quickly and running downstairs and opening the hall door. "Peter, Peter," cried Clarissa, following him out onto the landing. "My party tonight. Remember my party tonight," she cried, having to raise her voice against the roar of the open air, and overwhelmed by the traffic and the sound of all the clocks striking, her voice crying, "Remember my party tonight," sounded frail and thin and very far away as Peter Walsh shut the door. And that very strong metaphor of shutting the door, we heard it before with Clarissa saying that the door had shut on her, and here we have Peter Walsh, and in this moment he's shutting the door on what could have been. And that is the end of section 2. I will get section 3 done for you as soon as I possibly can. I hope that someone out there is listening to this and finding it useful. Good luck with it all, guys. Enjoy, and hopefully you're seeing a bit more meaning perhaps in this very difficult text.